Hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us this evening. And a thank you to those who are Zooming in from their homes or traveling so they won't miss our special program. Tonight, we are very excited to have an amazing speaker. He is a photographer, artist, educator, collector, publisher, and philanthropist. He is also the owner and founder of Candela Books and Gallery and lives in Richmond, Virginia. His personal artwork is represented by galleries in New York and also the Page Bond Gallery in Richmond. His work can also be found in many private and public collections, including the VMFA. He has won numerous awards, most notably the 2009 Teresa Pollock Award for Excellence in the Arts. We are here this evening to see and discuss some of the contemporary art on display in the current exhibition called Unbound 12, held in the Candela Gallery through August 7. Please let's give a warm welcome to our speaker, Gordon Stettinius.
Linda, thank you so much. I don't know if I'm going to live up to that introduction, but I'm going to try to present some materials. And Leo, if you don't mind, we'll start it a little bit further down, 104. Thank you guys for coming out, and I really appreciate you making some time to listen to me prattle on about something I love, and I hope that you'll appreciate. Candela Gallery, has anybody been to Candela? It kills me, actually, as I speak to VCU students, and sometimes they're photo students and they're juniors. And like, I can't get anyone to raise their hand out of like 12 juniors. And I'm like, oh my God, my head explodes. So thank you for making the hall down there, downtown, if you actually are living nearby. But we're there for you. And it's 214 West Broad. So do you know where the Cork Hotel is? It's right across the street from Cork Hotel, or the old Richmond Camera, which is just now gone away. I'm not sure where they're locating their physical plant. But anyway, so we're downtown, right off of Route 1 and Broad, and we've been there for 12 years. And I guess my reason for being, tell me when I can get on screen there, Leo. My reason for being is I've always lived a life, sort of photographic life. I've been an educator. I've taught at VCU. I taught at University of Minnesota in the outside of the arts department. Done some workshops. I've did kind of a hustle as a photographer, tried to be a commercial photographer, editorial photographer. I sort of said yes to everything. I was never super like killing it in the commercial world. And I was trying to show my own work in an arts kind of aspect as well. And so one year, probably around 2000, thereabouts, I met a woman named Gita Lenz. I had a show of work in New York, and she was an older woman. She was 92 years old, and she was in a wheelchair. She came to my show. A friend of mine brought her, and she made really certain that I understood that she was a photographer that night. And I met her. She was very dear, and so good night to her. And she was reminding me that she was a photographer, and I should come see her work, and so on. And it was a weird kind of prophetic night, because my friend would go on to become very close to Gita. Gita Lenz was an interesting artist from the mid-20th century. He didn't know that. I didn't know that. It was just kind of a human connection. And Gita, she passed away in 2011 at the age of 100. So even though I didn't get to meet her till she was 90 or 92 or so, it's been about 8 years getting to know her. And at some point in that trajectory, I became custodian of her work when she moved into an assisted living situation. And so all of a sudden I was like, had this huge debt, or a burden, I guess that you'd say, of somebody's work. And I know that many of you guys can relate. It's like, who's going to care about your work when you're on your way out of this world? You know, I mean, I know I'm worried about it. You know, like I actually give a lot of advice to people. I don't follow my own advice very well, but I have some advice for you. And anyway, so Gita, I had something on the order of about 2,000 prints, darkroom prints, many of them very beautiful. She was in the Family of Man exhibition. She was in a major show at the Brooklyn Museum. She was a political beast. She was a civil rights advocate. She was editor for a publisher. She was inhabiting a lot of interesting roles, living as a single woman in New York in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and quite a great printer. And so this 2,000 prints, they're not all great, but there's a ton of great work that actually is down at the gallery. And I am getting ready to pursue a kind of a little more of an outward effort, trying to figure out like a better home for this work than my storage room at the gallery. But in this situation, I felt like somebody's got to do something for Gita's work. She had a number of peers, but she was a woman. She was an artist. It was kind of an uphill climb for her. And she was a friend of Aaron Siskin's. I think she was very affectionate with Aaron, actually. They had made some kind of close relationship, we'll say. I always asked her how close, but she would laugh and say, I loved him, but she wouldn't tell me, like, what their specific relationship was. But she had been married and widowed. She'd been married and divorced. And so she was a single woman doing a thing and doing it really well back in the mid-20th century. So what happens? Is the landlord going to sweep the stuff into like the slipstream? It's going to go into secondhand stores. I mean, we just really felt like we had to wrap our arms around it. And we wound up consulting with an estranged, well, the nephew and niece were not estranged, but her only family was a brother, and she was estranged from this brother. So we had to get the blessing and sort of pass a smell test of this family that was remote. They were both on the West Coast, and they were actually weirdly estranged too. But we got the blessing. It took a long time to get like a legal authority to work with this work. And we got our New York gallery. I decided I wanted to give her a book. And that book was kind of the start of things for me, which we'll talk about in just a sec. But that book, I decided I wanted to give her something that should have sat on the shelves. Like if she had a book contemporaneously with Siskind and her other peers, that it was a hardcover, it had a tipped-in image on the front, and it was tricolor. It was actually a pretty handsome-looking book. I spent an arm and a leg on this book. But then I, through this New York gallery relationship, it sort of worked out. I got some of that money back, and but I became a publisher on the heels of just trying to do a kindness for this person, Gita. And after that, weirdly, because I think photographers are essentially kind of a hungry horde as a profession. Everybody wants to show you their work. Everybody sees you're a publisher. Hey, you're a new publisher. Let me show you my work. I mean, I got solicited right out of the gates. I was like, that's strange because I'm like looking at my dog right now. I don't have any staff. I don't have PR. I had to hire a designer. I was barely anything. But I fronted a little bit of money and put together a book, and all of a sudden I had a little bit of attention. And so I did a second book for a guy named Shelby Lee Adams, who is a prominent artist and somebody whose work I felt would be interesting in the marketplace, because it's actually kind of a controversial body of work. He's somebody who has photographed the snake handlers and the incest in Kentucky, and somebody who I felt that this would have been his fourth book, and he's well known. He's in 60 permanent collections. I thought I was really going to be kind of riding some shirt tails to a next level, and printed a bunch of books for Shelby, too many in fact. But I've sold more of those books than I've sold of any other book to date, and so it was still pretty canny play, I think. And then I worked with a gentleman named Chris McCall, and Chris McCall was on the heels, or on the uptick of becoming beloved, I would say, in the arts community. Somebody who's doing a very interesting body of work that hadn't really been seen before. I'd encourage you to look it up. And we have one piece in the back of the gallery right now, and if you ever came to visit me, I would definitely take time to show you some things. But Chris was actually a buddy, but also somebody who felt like they were really about to kind of go somewhere. And so the timing was great, and I managed to seduce Chris into working with me as well. And so those 3 books, I became a publisher, and I tried not to pretend like I know everything about publishing. I've done 9 books. I'm now working on my 10th, which I'll share with you tonight. But those 9 books have been a little bit all over the map. They've been a little opportunistic. There's been some surrealist poetry. There's been a few monographs, just single artist books. There's been conceptual narratives. There's been creative creative construction in a couple of books. I'm trying to get more creative with the process. And after Chris's book, and realizing that I was working with somebody who was kind of killing it at the moment, I thought maybe I should put some work on the walls. And so I filled up my studio's gallery with Shelby's prints first. Had a great exhibition there that did really well, surprisingly well. And then not that his work would do well, but just I'd never been party to an exhibition that sold out before, and that exhibition sold out. And so I was like, what just happened? It was really to the largesse of a couple of different people, bought portfolios of work, but I've been showing my work for 20 some years. I always felt lucky to sell a piece or 3 or 4 or something. A good show was like just selling a few things, making my money back. So anyways, this first show did very well. The second show was Gita Lenz, back to my sort of origin story. And the major collectors bought that work, and that was given to the museum. And so that was a pretty good thing. And then Chris McCall's work went kind of bonkers, honestly. People were traveling because this work is unique. And there's a little bit of, there's an appeal, I guess, for some collectors for unique pieces. So if they buy this work, then nobody else is able to buy this work. And Chris's work did really well. And this is all to say that I just got off to this great start. And it hasn't been a smooth sailing since. It's definitely been ups and downs throughout in the pandemic. Boy, I've just dragged myself through the pandemic like a lot of small businesses. But the gallery began very quickly like to just consume all my time. And the books I'm still very interested in. I hope to continue doing them, but they are kind of seasonal. I do 1 or 2 a year. And I'll answer questions about books specifically. I'm sure some of you are trying to cobble together something that's usually in a room of photographers this size. There's a few people ready to do the thing, to get the book. They wonder how many people will be interested. I'm happy to have that conversation. And again, I won't profess to know everything about it. Let me see. Where is the remote?
Okay, actually, we're transmitting.
We're transmitting?
We're online, yes.
It's all good. Okay. So memory orchards. I'm going to start here because this is literally where my head's at. This is when Linda called me. This is what I was staring at. This is what I was doing before I came here today. I'm doing a book that's about photographers who photograph their families. My 10th book. The first one I've edited explicitly the images. In the different books, I have different roles. I've written. I've been the money in a few instances. I've been kind of the producer. I've solicited money in some other instances. I've been the designer in a couple instances. And other times I'm paying for these services. But in this case, it's the first time I've edited. And the reason I'm editing it is a subject that's sort of dear to my heart. As a young photographer, 20-something, moved in with my girlfriend, and she had an older boy. And so I had this, this awesome kid in my life in the 90s in Tucson, Arizona. And this book came out in 1992, and somewhere in the subsequent next couple of years, I wound up being very attached to this book. It's called Flesh and Blood. Super cheap to get a hold of. It's something that you'll find $5 out in Amazon now. They must have printed a ton of them. I know that story all too well, actually. But it's easy to get, which is good for you. And it's actually got Sally Mann, Emmett Gowan, Carrie Mae Weems, Tony Mendoza, a ton of amazing photographers. And I, at that time, sort of embarked on making work that was kind of inspired or influenced by this book. So Flesh and Blood. The Ann Beatty's still with us. Annie Grunberg is actually going to contribute to my book, which is an unofficial sequel 30 years later. Annie Grunberg's one of the essayists. And then the editors are no longer with us. But there's a number. This guy, Jeff Jacobson, happens to be somebody I knew. He passed away a couple years ago, but he's a great editorial photographer. Elliot Erwitt, Christmas cards. So this book is more or less, there's a number of people in here that you'll find that their long-form projects are about their families. Sally Mann was that photographer. Emmett Gowan is that photographer. Or about place, or about home. Others, Erwitt was, I won't say he's a humorist, but if you know his work, there's a lot about dogs and timing, and popular with the editorial world, and had a huge swagger in this world. But family wasn't necessarily what you think of this Elliot Erwitt is making pictures of, but this was one of a series of postcards, Christmas cards that he would do. Sally Mann image. That's her daughter, Jessie. I'm not going to show you a ton of these, but I'm going to follow it up with some of the work that I'm actually including in the book to come. This is Tina Barney, and pretty intimate look, not unlike Larry Sultan, which I think I might also have included here, but kind of a Tonier family, if you will. Great book. Carrie Mae Weems. And so there's editorial work. This guy I love, Tony Mendoza, super funny. I was telling Patricia, I think earlier, that I flatter myself and consider myself humorous. And this guy is hysterical and tells stories along with his photos, and he just cracks me up. This is where Sammy got his red hair. You know, and I will say too, and Dwayne Michaels, one of the things that's very, I think, sort of charming about this book is, you know, there are these kind of A-listers or marquee names, but it's also a ton of people who I think just happen to have the benefit of knowing an editor, you know, or an MFA student for an educator, or, you know, just the connections. We're all kind of helping each other out. I feel like I've been buoyed by a ton of people, and I sort of hope to help other people along. And I'm not doling out favors in this book that I'm putting together, but there's some people, especially some young people, I'm excited to publish because it's going to do them good. You know, so I'm trying to I've got some Guggenheim winners and some names, but I've also got, you know, a former intern who went on to get her MFA at Syracuse, and I think she's a really credible artist, but you don't know her. I assume you don't know her, unless you're her parents or her cousins or something. But Dwayne Michaels, another guy for whom family is maybe not the main subject, but is actually not uncommon. Lori Novak, another person whose work is very installation-based and archive-based. I've made this play, not the projection play, but this archive, the idea of working with archives and family images, and then making new work based on that work is something that I'm really interested in. And I'll say too, I said it to somebody else, Larry Sultan, his family, actually, I'm saddened because there was a Pictures from Home, which was the title of a really incredible book by Larry Sultan, was made into a Broadway play. And it had like a short run, like 3 months or something in New York. I didn't manage to get up for it, but I think it would have been amazing. It had like big names, and sorry to have missed it. Here's Emmett Gowan. You guys know Emmett Gowan's work? I hope so. He's another Virginia photographer. Sally Mann, people in Virginia tend to know Sally Mann's work. Emmett Gowan is somebody who, they were close. I think they were a cohort somewhere. He went to Richmond Polytech. He was an RPI guy, but his work's amazing. It's really sweet, really beautiful, and it involves his wife Edith and his children. Elijah's gone on to be a photographer. I'm friendly with him, and Elijah's going to be in my book as sort of a nod to the previous generation. But Emmett Gowan is a remarkable printer. It's funny. Did you guys print your work? Most of you? Let's see hands. Because it's one of these things, like I actually, as an educator, I used to like talking about ideas. As a guy who was always like huckster, you know, practically just trying to get my work out there all the different ways. Like I don't do Instagram. I got on Instagram yesterday. And the reason for that is because I'm this mutant that just has to consider objects now. I'm trying to sell stuff, you know, and so that makes me a particular type of photo-interested person. So I really care about the paper, the substrate, the printing, the quality of the interpretation. Like I am like I care about that more than I probably ever did as a photographer, because I'm like, you know, an arbiter of quality to a certain extent, or a connoisseur or something. But used to love ideas, and ideas were enough, and lousy prints would be great to just kind of hash it out and talk about. When I was still kind of germinating or coming along, Emmett Gowan is super important to me. If I do you a favor today, it's to tell you about Emmett Gowan's work. Have a look. There's several books. There was a catalog by the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which I would hustle out to get. It's like mustard colored. It's just really beautiful. He has a book, Landscapes, that he's tritone. These amazing black and white prints that are just unbelievable. I heard you say landscape. I know there's always landscape people in the mix. He's just a great interpreter of imagery. And he lived out in Danville, still lives in Danville. He taught in Princeton for some years, but I think now he's retired and down in Danville. Which brings me to memory orchards. Memory orchards, if you can come up with a better title, I will consider it. Again, I was mentioning earlier, I've been like trying to get a better title than this for months, honestly. And Flesh and Blood being the unofficial precursor to my book, I've been trying to think about what is broad, what insinuates family, what might be kind of poetic or suggestive. And Memory Orchards is where I'm sitting. I feel like there's a better title out there, but I haven't found it yet. Susan Worsham is somebody who, I'm actually going to start with this next one, sort of thinking this might be a cover image for me. The book, doing a book is not rocket science, but it is like 1,000 little decisions, and I'm sort of toying with the title, toying with the cover. I'm sort of trying to lure in writers. I have conversations going with about 57 photographers right now. They're going to have 57 features, I think, in this book. And every one of those, as you might imagine, they have opinions about the images I like. And I have opinions about the image they'd rather me like. You know, and it's just that kind of conversation is like all I'm doing right now. And I'm okay with people. I like people. But still, it's a lot of high-intensive communicating I'm doing right now. And I'm thinking about this. If Memory Orchard sticks as a title, I like the tension of this sort of science. Susan is a great storyteller. She's a Richmond, Virginia resident. She is, anybody know Susan's work? Yes. Susan's another favorite. I actually really, truly love her. She's very special, and I think that I'll find a word, I'll find some positives about anybody I'm working with professionally, like I'm gonna basically blow some smoke for anybody that I've chosen to work with because I like them. I must if I'm like gonna talk about them for week after week after month. But Susan's special, and I feel like special is an anemic word and not a very like unusual word, but she really is different. She's a large format photographer, so she uses a view camera, but a lot of view camera people tend to be like super particular and calibrated and trained, well trained. And Susan is somebody who uses the large format camera almost as an impulsive tool. She wraps a t-shirt around a camera on a tripod, has it ready to go in her back seat of her car, and she's like doing you-do-its when she sees somebody, you know, that she thinks are interesting. And she's got this really wonderful, she works at L'Opossum, if you know the restaurant. Awesome restaurant, and there's only a few servers there, so Susan has got this amazing southern sort of brogue, and she talks about the herbaceousness of the cocktails, and she's just a great talker. And so I love her, truly. And her work is about her family. That's her mother here and her brother in her old snapshot. And the slides come from this very intuitive inclusion of ephemera that she's received from her neighbor, Margaret, who is an older teacher, who was a biology teacher at collegiate schools, if you know it, in the West End. And Susan grew up around University of Richmond. It's a very Richmond story. And Margaret was this cool lady who happened to contain or happened to hold close a lot of stories about Susan's family. She lost her mother and her father at an early age, and her brother also after a motorcycle accident. He would go on to take his own life, and Margaret had stories about that or about where the camellias were planted and when her mother, dug that hole or that ditch or brought that bench in. Or she has all these like really kind of small stories. But Susan listens, and then she kind of takes her own memories and Margaret's musings, and she puts together these incredible installations with text and sound, audio interviews, and casts people in, go back to that other image, cast people as herself in this case, herself and a friend, and she has this memory of Dixie cups, and so she'll put together a picture that's not explicitly her family, but it really is designed to tell a story about her family. And I would invite you to look at Susan's work. We've got a portfolio there that I'm trying to get us out the door and back into art fairs, just trying to like live a life again. But with Susan is kind of one of our, she's not a secret really, she's actually really well known, but she's like sort of she's close to us, she's a familiar. We're trying to get some fresh work to kind of roll out and try to introduce it to the world, introduce her to the world again. Here's Elijah Gowan, also works with his family, his wife, his children, his grandmother. I think hopefully his grandmother's in one of these slides. Nope. Elijah Gowan, he went to University of New Mexico, He, in the parallel universe, I was his roommate because I was almost his roommate, but then I had my own family come kind of surprisingly and made some different choices and got bandied around by circumstance. And we stayed close ever since, but I often wondered, about my alternate life going to university with Elijah and some others. Matt Eich, another Virginia name. Where's Elijah coming from? Elijah's coming from Kansas, I believe. His wife works at Nelson Atkins Museum. Matt's living in Charlottesville, and his family work's outstanding. He's kind of an editorial guy and a bookmaker, a book artist. He's a young guy that's incredibly accomplished, somebody else that's worth paying attention to, although he's a little bit shifty. His stories kind of vary, and you think you know what he's up to, and then he shows you something wildly different. But I met him, he felt to me really young, and he already had like 4 books, and he was working on his 5th, and I was like, who is this guy? Another one of Matt's images. And so the trick for me is to there's a lot of people with cute kids and sober, staring teens and, weddings or aging parents or, there's lots of, I won't call them tropes, but there's lots of subjects within family. And so I'm trying to put together a book that actually is not too sweet, not too sad or desperate, that does include some kind of Shakespearean vibes, something that's got like a tale and some surprises and so forth. This is Tommy Bruce, now living in Portland, formerly in New Mexico. But Tommy has been involved with the furry community since he was in high school. And so he's got a picture. I'll go ahead and give you the sort of the flip side. The furries, if you know them, they have these personas, and often these personas are born of pretty elaborate kind of ancestry of these costumes. And he's a really talented photographer. This is kind of the cast in studio. This is his suburban Baltimore family, his real family, and then his sort of chosen family over here. And he's done a documentation of I don't know that this text is going to make it in the book, although I always say this when I think about his work, or I'm trying to describe him for somebody. There's something really compelling about this kind of group where these guys are changing their alternative identities, basically, and they are celebrating. They're kind of living a life that maybe they don't feel free to live in. It's just kind of in their sort of regular human persona, and that is what it is. That's something that is for Tommy and his crew. But one of the things I found really interesting was the person who made Tommy's persona, this look, if you will, they made like a family of other outfits. And so those people are all sort of linked by a creator, if you will. And there's different makers in that world. So different looks, like manga, sort of Japanese inspiration, or a certain style of, bovine or deer, and certain sort of material choices. It's sculptural suits. And what was interesting to me, he told me a story about one of the people that he had known who passed away, and then the maker of that suit wore that person's identity at a wake or at a service. And people got to hug this person once again in the only way they'd known this person. I was like, wow. It sort of blew my mind, kind of. You think about your surface impression of somebody who gets dressed up in a certain way, but it's serious and delicate and complicated if that's the life you choose. And I was like, I don't know. I just try to be real careful about quick assumptions. Emily Schiffer, New York photographer, brilliant. She's actually a really kindly person. I'm looking forward to talking to her tomorrow. She works on I want to say it's a Glallarez in reservation in South Dakota, I believe. And she teaches photography to kids on this reservation, and she's gone back there year after year. She's just created a larger sort of enveloping group about women photographers. She's somebody who's doing more for other people than she's doing for herself, and she's just a brilliant maker too. I showed her at the gallery probably 5 or 6 years ago, a cool thing, but These are her kids. This is a reservation image, but that's her little girl Lola. And we have 5 or 6 images of her in the book. And I mean, she's got like 50 images that I want to include. And tomorrow we're going to argue about that. Paul Thulin's a VCU professor. Anyone know Paul Thulin's work? I produced a book of Paul's work probably about 4 years ago. And unfortunately, the pandemic kind of swallowed it up. It's really pretty awesome. But I haven't taken it to a single book fair. I haven't been back to a book fair in 3.5 years now. But Paul's I think he's maybe the head of maybe the chair of the grad program over there. That might be old title, but I'm pretty sure that's what he is now. And he is an amazing storyteller. His mother's family came from Puerto Rico. His father's family kind of landed in Maine. And this work is all about a cabin in Maine. But he's got this other body of work about Isla de los Palmas and Puerto Rico. And he talks and he makes you cry. He's just a really incredible person, incredible speaker. Priya Kambli, Indian American, who immigrated to the U.S. in, I don't know how old she is, so I can't tell you when, but when she was about 13 years old, she immigrated to the U.S. And she and her sister came, and I think the story goes, she and her sister both had a suitcase, and so she took with her change of clothes, certainly, but also an archive of images of the family. So she was put, onto the, on the road with a archive of her families. And so her work has been very much about families. It's been about commodities, sugar, flour. You'll see different sort of stencils. The stencils are important for either ritual or for a sense of domesticity. And she'll put a lace something that has significance over an image, and then she'll sift flour or sugar, or she's gotten into some color too, which is really interesting. I'm not sure what spices those are, but like purples and oranges, and she'll do these designs over top of her family photographs, and they're incredible. Priya Kambli is her name. Petals. And so that is one thing I'm doing right now. I got kids. I've got a 6 and a 9-year-old and an older boy. And so I leave here. I'm going to pick up dinner and go home. And I'm struggling to kind of put this project together because the gallery is such a sort of a needful thing. It's so much going on. We had I'm about to get into the gallery. So Candela Gallery is the name of my gallery. We are having a good time. We'll show you a good time. We'll try to talk to you about photography if that's your interest. We'll talk to you about food if that's your, we'll try to talk to you about whatever, music, whatever. Most recently I published I'm going to leave this with Linda, since she was the one who approached me, but maybe you'll think it's more suited for somebody else. Re-gift if you feel the need. But I'm going to leave it with you. This is your official thank you. But we have a bingo photographic cliches set of cards. Okay. And I always feel a little bit exposed. I haven't actually spoken about this very much, so maybe I can cover my backside, if you will. But putting something like sunsets or drag queens or boring photo, but a dog makes better. Putting that into words and kind of being judgy or sounding judgy about photography. It's not really about that. I've put together about 108 cliches. I'll read a few. Hands presenting things, graffiti, double exposure, old car in tall grass, people making photos of people making photos, twins, prism effect or rainbow, hands or handprints. Anyway, I won't go through it. It's a ton of these things. And because we are looking at pictures all the dang time. We just Unbound, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. Hey, time, what is my time here? I will talk for 2 hours if I'm not careful. I can also wrap it up. Good night. It's 7:40. Okay, I don't want to go that late. I want to go more like 8:15 maybe, something like that. Is that cool? And I'll let you guys ask questions too. I don't want to just talk. I will talk. But okay, so this thing we always, like for Unbound, we have about 600 or 700. You want to crack it open? You can pass them around. We have about 600, 700 people submitting work to Unbound. I encourage you guys to submit. It's free to submit. The call, if you get on our mailing list, every February we put out the call for submissions, we call it. and send us your work. And we won't be snarky jerks about it. We actually would love everybody that we know to submit work. We don't care what you do, you know. And in fact, this show we try to put together is a survey of work. It's what's at the gallery now. It's what I was hoping to pull y'all to in order to see. I was hoping to host you in my space rather than come here. But so you think 600 and 700 people, and everybody gets to submit 4 or 5 images. And so we looked at about 2,500, 3,000 images, and all we need is about 40 or so, and the gallery's pretty full up. So it's competitive. Some people get 2 images, but nobody gets a ton of images. It's a lot of different artists. We've had 57 or something artists in this show this year. And we got some book objects that are crazy good. And so when we're looking at 3,000 images, you see a lot of things just repeating over and over again. And so the point of this bingo card was like, oh my gosh, you know, there's these photos that my directors will love. And I'm like, do you love that, or do you love it because there's a dog in that picture? And then, you know, and they're like, well, we like it because there's a dog in that picture. You know, so, or you try to sort of test yourself. It's like, do we like the dock? We like that sort of infinite road image because it says something to us and we make those images, or is it redundant, you know? And so all these different possible photographic cliches, they're extended with love, and they're really meant to like maybe be used with students. I've got a manifesto masquerading as instructions, Linda. You read this and you can go to sleep at night. It probably gets you to sleep about 7 nights if I hazard. It's about 3,000 words jammed on 2 sides of a letter sheet, and it's got recommended assignment and then something for jurors, an exercise for how often they can stretch or have a glass of wine or something. Anyway, so we're always kind of inundated with these familiar pictures, and so we decided to do something about it. Not do something about it, but do something with it. And so we've got these sunset, an abundance of sunset chips, exercises, and we did our first bingo night Thursday night last week, and it was fun. It was actually just barely enough to play. We have 16 cards, so we just had enough to play, and we were hoping for having like 2 flights of people so we could like take turns and not have to play throughout the night. But we laughed pretty hard, and what we did is we showed a bunch of images, and I asked for submissions for this. I don't want to like just point at just people's images unsolicited. I asked people to submit their own cliches, and we got about 130 cliches. And then as it turned out, that 130 submissions was really only about 40 of these cliches. So I had to put a lot of my own work. I threw myself under the bus and put in about 40 or so more. And I have them. Everybody has them. And then ultimately, I had to use AI. I leaned on AI to create about 25 or so for my slideshow, which I hope to get out. I'm an AI kind of, I'll talk to you about it, but as a photographer person, I'm trying to kind of abstain, and I will get some pictures in there instead of AI here pretty soon. But so my next edition of these cards are going to have a QR code for a slideshow that'll come with, at least to get you started if you don't have your own carousel of photo cliches. But you might be able to do it. You might be able to do an exercise here possibly. I don't know. On some slide night. But then somebody called me. I won't even say it. I feel like I shouldn't be vulgar. But somebody called me a vulgar word when I was sort of breaking these out and talking about them and having fun with them on Facebook. And I think I don't know, it was a late night post. I don't know if they'd been out or if they had a beef with me or something. But anyway, it's like I'm not dark-hearted. It's actually because we love photography. And I think when you realize you're doing something that's familiar, cemeteries, everyone's made pictures. You know, so if you're doing it, do it really well. You know, that's the whole point, is lift your game, right? Okay, so that's one thing we did last Thursday as an intro to our Unbound exhibition. I'm kind of gotten off topic here. These are our 9 books that we've published to date. Gita Lynn's, I mentioned, Salt and Truth by Shelby Adams, Chris McCall's Sunburn. Those 2 are out of print. I have, give you one of those if you pop by the gallery. I have way too many. They still sell for $60 at a book fair. They're awesome books, actually. But just made a miscalculation as to how many I printed and how many I could sell. Like, just not smart. Anyway, I printed 4,500 and I sold about 3,000, which is a ton of books. If I printed 3,000 books, I'd feel like a genius, but I don't feel like a genius because I could make like a patio out of the books, out of the cartons of books that I have upstairs at Candela. This is a book I did with my friend Terry Brown. This is a picture. This is just me and about some 50+ hairstyles. I met my wife looking like this. This project, while it was not strictly speaking my photography, it was my life for about 8 years, so I'm glad it's over. But my wife, I did meet my wife. This you can't see is a book called Black Forest, and it's almost illegible, and it's an awesome book. It's the only book I think I have that doesn't have a mistake in it. There's an asterisk there. There is a mistake in there technically, and the artist tried to call me out on it. But then I pointed to their agreement, and the mistake was in the caption, and the date was wrong in the book, and they were kind of like, oh, you know, it's great, but, and I was like, it bugged me because I was like, we made that mistake, and we didn't. They made the mistake. They provided us with a mistake. Willie Ann Wright, direct positive. Willie Ann Wright is an amazing, she's like the matriarch of the Richmond photo community. Do we know Willie Ann? Willie's awesome. She's really, really like a force. We just celebrated her 99th birthday in June. And she's got a show coming up at the VMFA. I'm going to give her a micro plug here. Show coming up at the VMFA in October. They've acquired a bunch of her work, or acquired or were given, I'm not sure the specifics of it all, but they are now got a nice sizable archive of Willie's work and archives and letters and some of her materials. And they are putting together an exhibition that I think may have a catalog. I hope it does. And we're going to put together a show in November that's, we hope, complimentary. As a photo gallery, it's going to be cool because we have an opportunity to show her off as a painter. We're going to show some of her paintings. We've shown her a few different times already, so we're trying to do something a little bit different and try to figure out how her photography informed her paintings and vice versa, how her paintings informed her photography. She was a known painter. She has a painting in the modern collection at the VMFA that's always up. And then and she's had other shows. In the photo gallery, they have the little corridor. She's had shows of her Civil War reenactors there. I think her Women in White have been there. She's got about 17 cool chapters in her life, and she's a really amazing person. We had a show of her work about 4 years ago, and it was like recent work. And I said she was 99. So in 95, we were showing her recent work. It was this lumen prints of tarot cards and whatnot. It was just kind of a incredibly innovative. She's an innovator on top of being a craftsperson and a good maker and an interesting person. She was doing things that people were not doing. And this book was one of my favorite projects. She was loading Cibachrome film or Cibachrome paper directly into pinhole cameras. And I have seen a show, like a big, broad, sweeping retrospective of sort of pinhole as a craft. And there are a couple other people who have done something like this, but she made like a 10-year body of work, and she pursued that like a dog. You know, she just really made an amazing archive of images that are all unique because this paper was designed to make print from color transparency, so it makes a positive from a positive. And so you load it into a camera. The color might be wonky, was wonky all the time almost, but the color might be wonky, but it was making a unique color image that she could process, and there wasn't going to be another one like it, so unique work too. So that was a really cool work. This is Conan Selesnik. This is kind of a weird sort of dystopian novel that's unbound and loose sheets, and I made its cousin over here, which is, why am I blanking? It's like basically a sequel with a similar thing, but it's more alchemy. It's got different recipes for magical rituals and things. And the two are both unbound, and so they wanted to print this one with me as well. And then this is my friend Paul's book, and it's printed in China. And the reason for that is that I don't think I could have afforded to have given it here because it's so indulgent. It's got these beautiful sort of debossing on the end sheets. It's both printed and debossed, and it's got like a foil stamping, and it's sort of shiny, and it's material we couldn't have found. And it's got different paper types. And we did something that's more intricate than anything we've done to date. But he's also, like, this was his first mainstream published work. and I wasn't sure that money was coming back, so I was feeling super conservative about it. I just didn't want to pour a ton of money into it. So we found somebody to be like an ally over in China who used to work at Aperture Books, knows way more than I do about publishing, so actually it falls in better hands with that guy just kind of helping us, working with us. Anyway, I encourage you to come handle that book because it's beautiful. And then the 10th book, which will be Memory Orchards, if that name sticks. And then we've done a lot of things. We've done catalogs for different shows. We've done the bingo deck. I printed some NFT shirts. You know, you guys talking about NFTs last year? You guys know what I'm talking about, non-fungible tokens? Do you guys care about that? No, everyone cared about it a year ago. Nobody cares about it anymore. Anyway, I made an NFT shirt that I pegged to the Ethereum. So one of the cryptocurrencies that were popular, I've sold the t-shirt for that specific amount of Ethereum. And so the t-shirt value goes up and down. It's been as low as 23 and some change, and been as high as 29 and some change. It's punny. I think I'm punny. Variety of things. We used to do the cards. We kind of stopped doing the cards. Now we're doing the cards again. If you want to get on our actual mailing list, we will send you cards. We're back in the game. We were busy during the oh shoot, this got messed up in the transmission to Leo. But some of the names, people we worked for, I'd say in 12 years' time, we typically have 2 or 3 feature shows in a year, 1 or 2 book-related shows. Candela, the Unbound show, which is a big monster in the summer. And then we have a couple of shows. We've done politics on the eve of election, you know, trying to talk about different issues. We had one in 2016, we had a show called Stump that had Guantanamo, reproductive rights, Black Lives Matter. We had different artists working with these sort of concepts. And editorially, we actually did voter enrollment. We just wanted to have something to talk about in the months leading up to that election. Sometimes I say this a lot, and there's going to be maybe a change, is I don't think I'm an amazing commercial gallerist. I feel like might be better suited to be a nonprofit in some ways. The books are pretty dicey business. Unbound, the coolest thing about Unbound is we have a show. We have a show, but then we have a party. We raise money from that party. This year the party is August 5th. I'm going to say it again later. You can write it down then. August 5th is a ticketed thing. We have live music. My son's playing this year. And we have back alley chicken. We have adult snow cones. We have goofy entertainment. We're trying to just pull money out of you as much as we can. We got about $12,000 is our goal this year. Last year we made about $10,000. And with that $10,000, all the proceeds get used to spend money buying work from the show. Now I challenge you to find another show that buys work. There's one that I stole the idea from in Houston 12 years ago, but they don't exist anymore. So I feel like we might be the only game that does that. And so with that last year was $10,000. With that 10, if you have a piece that sells for $1,000, you say you have wide lux panorama, or somehow you got panorama images. You have a piece that sells for $1,000, and typically a gallery gives you 50% and keeps 50%. We're giving the artist their 50%. We don't ask for submissions. We don't try to dock you your percentage, and we don't take any money. So it's this zero-sum idea. And so that $10,000 will spend like $20,000. $20,000 is not a ton of money, but it's kind of some money. And so we can buy some work wholesale. We've collected 107 pieces in the last 11 years. Every year we've done 6, 8, 10 pieces that we bought. And we promise to donate those to a permanent collection. Might be the VMFA, might be the Chrysler. The only actual query we've gotten about it is from the museum at the University of North Carolina. So one day we're going to give that away. So we feel like karmically we're in pretty good shape, or in pretty good position, because it's a show that buys work, so it's money in photographers' pockets, no fees to submit, and then there's a nice resume line to get into a permanent collection. And you are in the Candela collection until such time as you're in some other, hopefully better collection, or bigger collection, I should say. Anyway, so we have that show, and then we have the Stump politics. We did Whitney and Ashby, my directors, today, they put ideas on the board of what we might be working on in the future. One of them was kind of like, Mad Science Girls, I think. One of them's a dog one. They're sort of insisting they want to do a dog show. Haven't done anything like that yet to date. But that could be a pretty interesting commercial show, maybe. I like dogs. I've lost 2 dogs this year, and I'm sort of like brokenhearted, and gonna be getting a new dog hopefully soon someday. Anyway, so the features, you're filling our space with your work, or maybe a 2-person gallery or 2 people in separate galleries for some of these people. And I invite you to kind of dig into these. I don't know if you take a picture or just go to the website. Most of this information's there. How to reach us, before I dig into the Candela, the Unbound thing, you can join our mailing list. Sometimes it's like, how do you get to where how do you figure out who you're going to show? Or how do I get an Unbound? Or basically, you got to kind of you don't need to get to know us. We're not networking crazy people, but I mean, it is good to be known. It's good to kind of support us so that we can support you. I mean, that doesn't sound too forward, does it? But join our mailing list, and you'll be, aware of any submissions. The family book was based on submissions. I got 650 portfolios about photographers who photograph their families. I feel like I've swallowed an elephant. So again, there's a huge landscape of photographers out there, and it is local, but it's also like everywhere. So we try to communicate as best we can. Attend our events, our programming. Do your homework. If you were to look at my work, you'd see I'm fairly straight photographer. I'm kind of darkroom bound. I still print in the darkroom. I'm making pictures of my kids. I am kind of like, impulsive, I think. I see a thing, I'll take a picture of it. I'm sort of a shooter. I'm not the greatest thinker. My book projects are sort of rambling and kind of bloated and huge. But my gallery, on the other hand, is more contemporary. So we will show a lot of cool process, things that sort of strain the definition of photography. We have a young guy from France who's presented his work questionably. I shouldn't say that. Forget I said that, those of you online. Not questionably, affordably. And but the work's kind of genius. He's doing something, he's making these prints, they're abstract, they're not really figurative, they don't really have a subject per se. It's just, he's just training up this photo paper and using solvents and things and kind of eliciting kind of a salt compound to the surface, and they're just like surface paintings. And they're just so cool. And my gallery sort of skews towards that lane of more contemporary and a little more adventurous with process. But I can't help it. I like clean photographs. Every once in a while, we'll see something editorial. Every once in a while, we'll see something, a whole narrative that's using just straight color photography, digital or film or whatever. But a lot of times you'll see tintypes or there's an argyrotype on the wall right now. There's the mixed media and collage work, the rephotographic stuff, the archive-based work. That is kind of our flavor. If you happen to be a straight photographer, you might find that, hey, maybe we're not for you, but maybe we might be for you or you adjacent. It might be sort of fun to think about. Unbound, one of the reasons why I think it's a cool one for emerging photographers to visit is it's got so many presentation solutions. It's got so many different types of framing ideas. It's got unglazed work. It's got hand-built stuff. I don't know. I feel like I wish it weren't, I know why it's in the summer, but sometimes I wish it were during the school year so VCU could appreciate it. Make an appointment with us. I get a little cagey at times, like in the next few weeks, I'm going to be like super busy because I'm already late handing off my work on my book. But generally, we're pretty slow at the gallery. I don't know, when everyone was being COVID conscious, I was trying to remind people that come visit us. We were like, we'll stand 30 feet away from you and there's nobody else in the space. And we just come hang out. And if you're a photographer and you tell me what you're into, a lot of people don't want me to tell them things. They want to tell me things. But if you do want to hear some ideas, I used to teach and I like to kind of share. I have books that you could check out, not check out, but you could borrow or sit down and check out. If you really have, if you're just kind of randy for an opportunity to show a specific body of work, get yourself in a really tight sort of fighting shape. Don't send me to your website that's got everything that you've ever done on it. because you were a big deal in the 80s or whatever. Like, that's cool, but it just doesn't matter. You know, to show me what you want to show me that you think I'll be interested in. Tight is better. Less is more. And recognize our work. That's just kind of like, you know, people sometimes, like there was a woman came in today wanting to get her friend a show. And I went down, I stopped what I was doing, which was this, by the way. I was doing this. And I stopped, I went downstairs, and long spiel, and she told me that she got a friend, she was amazing, and wanted to see how they can get their work in front of me because she's super confident in this person. I was like, is she a photographer, or are they a photographer? And she, no. But it's sculptural, but it could be. Sometimes they do photographic things of the sculpture, and that's really cool. And I was like, they hadn't looked at the work. They hadn't spent any time. They just wandered straight in, asked what I could do for them. And I'm kind of like, this is just such a transparent thing that it feels kind of like, oh, this is like People 101, and I feel like I don't need to say that really, but it still happens that people get so gussied up like with their own ideas, they forget to realize I'm trying really hard too. Or we're trying, I should say we're trying. My guys are trying harder than I am. They're better workers, harder workers. Unbound, which is up on the walls now, and I invite you to come. Come on, come all. We have a party on August 5th. These are some of the old cards, but I thought it was worth sharing. We actually have not done cards for probably year 7, 8, and 9 or so. The themes for the parties, we had kind of a martial arts kind of vibe. We had Jackie Chan cakes, Kung Fu Super 8 shorts. We had a Chuck Norris lookalike contest where everyone who was in attendance was automatically entered. But somebody kind of won, and they won one of those sort of workout machines that Chuck Norris used to use. You know what I'm talking about? The sliding thing, and your body weight is the weight. Anyway, so we borrowed, it was used, gently used. And we got it from somebody I knew in college who had it happen in the garage. Anyway, so I'm coming up with the craziest stuff I can think of. Let's see, we had Romanian music, Back Alley Chicken. I don't know what entertainment means. We had an insult bar, which for like $5 you could get an insult. For $10 it could be a graphic insult. So you had specialty cocktails over here and insults over here. It didn't really work. It probably raised about $20, but you know, it's more just to say it. I like saying stuff like that. The original ocular. Anyway, actually, this is supposed to be like a Mexican movie poster. Kind of. It always has like kind of a sexy image. It's got a gun and it's got a dead body. Just kind of like all the tropes of sort of the Mexican sort of the sort of B-movie posters. And so while the show itself is sort of unthemed and there's no real restrictions to what you can send to us, we try to build a little bit of concept into the PR. And this year it's going to be a fair, and I think there's going to be like some sort of petting zoo, and that might be like one of our interns in a college. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. But on we go. And I'm only going to show you 20 images. I'm going to stop. I'll talk to you. And there's some 57 works and some 18 books or something. So it's a lot of work, and I'm not showing it all. Here we have Alexa Cushing, which actually is on our road signs with bullet holes, is actually on our bingo card. And still, I think it's a really cool image. This is really nicely presented, too. It's aluminum print. And weirdly, I think this photo, whoever did the copy work, I think you're actually seeing a little bit of, maybe it's the spotlight from the car lights or whatever, the studio lights. But anyway, but it's still too good not to enjoy. They look like what? Bullet holes. They are bullet holes. What do you say? B12. This guy, Will Connolly, who is a really interesting character, former student of mine, but now a VCU, probably adjunct professor if I had to guess. I think he's still over there. And Will has been creating kind of a story and a fiction. He's using his photography as a means of storytelling. He's really creative and humorous and low-key. It's not really believable, but just enjoyed sort of the absurdity of this one. And then we were rewarded. Let me take a drink. We were rewarded by this being actually at a huge scale. It's a really big print, which makes this kind of, I think, even better. And you'll see this actually, I got this from the website. I was hoping to cruise the website a little bit with you because we also have a tab on the website where you can see the collected works. We have these slide carousels of all previous 11 shows, and I love what my director Whitney did with that. It's just a really great time killer, I think. It's just a ton of work. I mean, I feel like we probably featured 100 photographers in the gallery by now, but we've had like a little tiny contact or tiny exchange with probably 1,000 people at this point. Why isn't this going anywhere, Leo? Did I turn it off? Maybe I did. I'm a fidgeter. There we go. Bonnie Blake. Pretty classic still life. I think that we probably, in our minds, we don't have an official checklist for genres for, still lives or nudes or landscapes or what have you, cliches or whatever. But I think in our minds, we actually are trying to make sure that different sorts of genres or styles are represented. And every year I feel like we have, a fair complement of people just trying to find beauty in domestic scenarios. And Bonnie's is one of the ones we chose this year. And it is a contemporary show, and it suggests, I think, that the work needs to be within the last 3 or 4 years or something. But if it's good, we're not really big on rules. And we've shown work, and we've collected work that's 40 years old. So, I mean, this could be the dig out, the cool thing from the 80s I was just disparaging a moment ago. We just kind of want to be just pro photo object here. This was something that was, I wouldn't say it was commissioned. We did not extend any money here. But Elizabeth Stone we've shown and collected previously. And then I saw some work of hers that was recently completed, and it was this old negatives that were crimped and sewn and kind of almost, I don't know, one of those screens from the 70s that sort of would rattle when you walk through it, kitchen door and the kind of the cool house. And you kind of go through the screens or whatever. She had these kind of beaded curtain kind of things, but they all had photographic elements to them. And that was unavailable because it was being shown somewhere else in the country. And so she was like halfway into this, and she goes, I think I could finish this. This is all family imagery. And I've actually spent a lot of time this is like a major exhibition in its own right. And it's just hanging in the window. She's really interesting. Somebody who is working sculpturally oftentimes with photo objects. Another still life. Met her in a photo review, I think maybe San Diego or Colorado. I can't remember which, but not that long ago. I've never known her before. And she's got 2 great bodies of work. One is these sort of birds and still lives and kind of studio constructions, like a studio photograph. We have 2 of these, and these are nice and lovely and large. And Sandra Stark is kind of creepy and more like unhinged or something. But she's also working in a similar terrain studio and sculptural. These are cool. These are images that are laser etched. So the actual articulation of these, there's something I still need to have a question for the artist myself. I don't know everything about everything because it's just so much dang work. But these are laser etched. So it's all been like just the surface just been burnt away or just eradicated by a digital application of laser. So she's created these kind of sci-fi installations using lasers in photography. The gelatin silver print. It's got Reuben Radding, who just always amuses me. We had a fun show 4 or 5 years ago, and it's called Bring a Date. And we built it around a pretty cool photographer who had been photographing in Studio 54. And it's all these dancers, and it's just people just having literally too much fun, but a lot of fun. And then we had a woman, we did a rear screen projection in the front window of just a loop of all these roller skating dancers. And so people were just sticking outside our gallery, like into the night, whatever foot traffic there was, bars or restaurants, and just watching these guys just dance. And it was just this beautiful, like 10-minute loop. We had Richmond's music scene in the 90s was a really awesome punk scene. We had a guy named Thurston Howell Anybody know that name? Yeah? What's your name? You're nodding a lot to all the things I say. Bo Milner. Nice to meet you. Did you know Thurston? No, he's a professor at the time. One of my interns was a student, and I'm growing to like him. I've never met him myself, I don't think, but his punk work in the '90s was awesome, and so we had some of that. And then we had this guy Ruben Radding, who I probably didn't know before then, but I found him just through some research. Had this great karaoke series, and we think about, like, do you ever do karaoke? Anybody? If you imagine how, like, if you go all in, just like how great it is. And he had this wonderful series of just regular people singing their lungs out. Anyway, this is more of a New York street scene, which I kind of enjoyed. Shane McFadden, Still Life. Shane is also, this is probably not a nepotistic play at all. I kind of recused myself from this particular discussion. But he is my assistant on my photo book, and he's a cool character, young guy. Elizabeth Liebert, this is kind of the Venus. Looks like the Venus how do they say that? Who's the Venus on the half shell? Or reminds me of that mythic sort of thing. This is probably about as nude as we might have in the gallery at this particular moment. I just think it's beautiful. And it's changed somehow by the handling of it. This is a photo etching, photogravure. Dominique Labovie, who we had two artists, and we didn't know Dominique, but we kind of knew the other one. Actually, we knew the other one pretty well. Didn't know this work that was included. A guy named William Douglas, who VCU student, moved to Miami with his partner. Now he's up in New York, and he's a hustler. He's kind of doing a ton of work, but he submitted his work along with this guy, and made by a sort of a studio or atelier in Miami. And so the idea of the photogravures are always kind of insistent for me, because I'd really like to try it one day. But it's basically an etching into zinc or aluminum. Zinc or copper, I think, are the typical materials. And it's either acid etching, or you can use a photopolymer, which is a non-acid version, which is more like silkscreen technology. And you can basically eat away at a plate, and using a resist and an agent of some kind that will sort of bore into the plate. And then you ink that plate, and then it's more of a printmaking practice. But you can do it photographically. And this work just kind of struck us as an abstract work. Abstraction is probably another thing we're unofficially trying to represent during Unbound. This work I saw in Houston. Actually, they submitted it this year, which I was surprised. We didn't really solicit it or invite it or anything. And they're working in India, and it was impossible for me, since we're not in a major market and raking in a ton of money, it's really hard to work with international artists. It happens sometimes, like somebody will ship us something that matches some frames I have, or we try to be resourceful about it. But we produced this they sent it in a tube. It's a life-size X-ray of somebody who had been shot with pellets, like a crowd control situation, resistor who is being subjected to, like, basically buckshot or birdshot. And so all these little dots, and there's hundreds of them, are recorded on this X-ray, and they have a huge exhibitions worth of life-size figures of people who have been victim of this kind of crowd control or suppression. Really remarkable artists, and I don't know a ton about them, but I'm hoping to learn more. Richard is also news to me. Richard Francisco Howard Dihame. DMA number 2 is the title. Richard Francisco Howard. And Richard is like super cool person. Did not know about them, but this is an old school like color separation. So 3 black and white images registered in different sorts of densities in red, blue, and green, or cyan, magenta, and CMYK, yellow. Thank you. Yeah, so this is a composite of 3 black and white negs, it says. So it's tricolor. Black. There is a red and green and black, I guess. But it's it's slightly offset, and it's not super sharp, but for a process nerd, I really love it. And weirdly, it's a pretty good sized piece, actually. It's about so and so, maybe 20 by 24. And I met him for the first time at the opening. He's a Richmond person. Really don't know much about them. And he said, this is as small as he works. So I'm now got to do a studio visit and learn more about him. Oshin Haruthunian, a New York artist who approached me probably 6 months ago, just wanted to introduce themselves, really admires Chris McCall and some other artists that he actually did the thing. He kind of said he knew what we were doing and liked that thing that we did and loved that book. And I was like, cool, what you got? Or where are we going with this? And then he wanted me to see some work, and he sent me to a website, which is not my favorite way of doing things, but I went, and it's just a ton of work. And I was like, oh God. And then I was like, but it's really interesting. And so what I did is I wrote him back and I encouraged him to submit to Unbound so I could look at what he's done. For me, it's like a little bit of a speed date or a little bit of a small taste of somebody. Like if your work is interesting online, Unbound's where we kind of take a chance and bring it in and kind of consider you, at least in a small bite. And it's really beautiful. And I have got it in my event horizon. I want to go up and do a studio visit with Oshin. And one of the things I really dug about Oshin is I like him. He's somebody who seems sort of relaxed. He's like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, I know we're scheduled out almost to 2025 right now, with the exception of Unbound rolling around every summer. And maybe somebody might flake on us or need more time. But we're programming out already like a year and a half at this point. And Oshin seems to know his way around that conversation and was super mellow and happy to send us some frame samples. I was like, why don't you send it for Unbound? Or why don't you send us a submission for Unbound? And I'll probably put my thumb on a scale and just see something because I really like the work. And they sent it, and it's in the show, and it's cool, and my appetite is just whetted a little bit. Tintypes, you familiar? Tintypes is a old process. 1880s, 1890s is probably starting to kind of go away. It's a wet collodion process. At least I think this is wet collodion. Doesn't say. There's a dry collodion process that replaced the wet, but a lot of purists will use the wet collodion, which has to be exposed, I think, while it's tacky, while the actual emulsion on a plate or piece of glass is tacky. And typically a tintype is black painted tin, or historically tin. Now it's black painted aluminum. And or you could have ambrotype, where it's black painted glass. The glass is backed with black, but it's always black. And this guy, Frank Hamrick, started messing around with color and subjects. It's a little bit idea A meets execution A. Like he's like, oh, do something blue, blueberry. They also did orange traffic cone. And we wanted to see them. And I hadn't really seen anything like it. And so anything that feels fresh invites my interest. And one of the cooler sort of artist books, I'm showing two books here. Dana Fritz had this really precious thing that like 2 or 3 people wanted to buy last year. And then this year we've got 2 things from Dana. And this is beautiful. An edition of 50, $30 price point. And it is a cool object. She makes beautiful things. In book arts, as much as I couch myself as a publisher, people like Dana, there's so many people in that world just blow me away. And I feel like a poser sometimes when I kind of hang out with someone like Dana. She's making beautiful objects. And then the book component of this show, sometimes we'll also want to have a look at either an artist we appreciate, like Sarah. Sarah's been in about 2 or 3 Unbounds. And she's kind of somebody who's making photographs of collections and curious interiors and sort of smart and funny. And I'm a fan. And this book came in as a submission. It's like, I want to see it. I want to buy it. So we got 2 or 3 copies. And so it could be anything from a one-off hand-bound, sewn from, the papyrus you grew in your backyard to a newly kind of indie book published. Lauren Grabel, or Grable, I'm not sure which, she's also growing on me. I've kind of gotten to know her over the years. She's been in a couple of Unbounds. We've never featured her as yet, but she's in Ken Burns' new book that he published about the history of the U.S. She's, I don't know, I just keep hearing, she keeps me posted, and I keep hearing things about her. Here's a classic landscape for you. Riley Goodman, recent VCU grad. We actually very purposefully, we didn't really like necessarily need to help Riley into the show. How am I doing on time there, Leo?
A little bit above, but
Okay.
getting close.
Okay, I'm getting close. Okay. So,
six slides.
Okay, perfect. And Riley is awesome and young. He did a book with Fall Line Press out of Atlanta, and we did a book release show for him in a back gallery that's small and we're kind of agile. We'll put together, if we really smitten with something, we'll figure out how to have an event for you. And so Riley, he's a post-grad, so he's not really a good example of what I'm about to say, but we do have an eye for students too. If you got the kid coming up in undergrad and whatnot, try to get those kids to go. It's good to be rejected. Honestly, I think that's like art vitamins. Just get your work out there. Just don't worry about what people have to say. You know, just try to find opportunities for yourself. And so we will definitely try to get 2, 3, 4 students into the show so they can have their work next to like Jeff Bridges or Vivian Meyer or Larry Fink or some name, you know? So we're trying to kind of social engineer optimism for kids. Riley's not a kid. Riley's about 5 years beyond that. But I do think of him as a young, good photographer. Then Thielen Ding, really kind of ominous interventions in the landscape. There's a lot of work that's sort of, none of it's the same, but it all kind of has the same sort of mental energy. We got something a little bit smaller than I'd hoped for. I think we were told something on the submission and then got something that was like this. And I feel like these would get better as bigger. I don't always believe that. And then I think that's actually, one of my 6 slides is blank. So I'm going to hum a little ditty. And then I'm going to remind you that August 5th is the Unbound event. And you buy tickets online. If you were to go to candelagallery.com, there are ways to support if you want to give us $25. There's ways to buy a ticket for $60. There's might be raffle tickets too. I'm not sure if there are. That we're right now, most of our mental energy is about trying to make this party fun. I sell it like it's the best party ever known to man, when in truth, it's a pretty good party. So consider coming. This year we've got our Cantos, which is my son's second band. It's not really his main project. Back Alley Chicken, there's some question about that. Adult Snow Cones are probably on me. Captain Terry is my studio partner, Terry Brown, and I think if you cast a line over like a photo backdrop or something, she's going to hang a prize on it. And State Fair is the theme. I'm not sure about it all. Backroom Bingo. Beaver Bottom Mysteries are, Ashby, one of our directors, is making like some 100 little tiny beavers, and the Candela mark she's putting on the bottom of some of those beavers, and that entitles you to a book or a t-shirt or something. Specialty drinks, that's always different. Blue Ribbon Awards, I'm not sure, probably the artist that came the farthest distance, I don't know. So candelabooks.com, contact me if you like. elgordo@candelabooks.com, and I can stop. I can field questions. Well, Candela is actually busy on Instagram. That's Whitney Cole and Ashby Nickerson are our co-directors at the moment. And Whitney is like the social media savant. I just got on there yesterday because I wanted to try out Threads, the new Twitter alternative. And Twitter I was kind of busy on. Instagram I haven't posted yet. And it's been just one day. And next year I might not have posted. I don't know. No, I've got Gordon Stettinius, but I wouldn't friend me. I'm not doing anything. I really wanted to see what Threads was about. You can't do Threads without IG, and so I did it. And actually, Whitney said something when I liked my own company's account, like I liked Candela. Whitney did a screenshot of that and did a movie. I don't even understand what she did, but we blew up, and I have friend requests now, and I'm like, I'm not going to do anything, I don't think. Facebook I was busy with. I mean, I don't know. I don't put much photo out there, but you get me in the right mood, and I'll show you. I'll talk about photography too. Question?
Yeah, I was at your gallery.
Lou, like a little dog? Yeah. Lou's still around. Yeah, that's Whitney's dog, Lou. Yeah, Lou's awesome.
My question is, you
Okay, I've got little background. I had to grow into this kind of philosophy a little bit because I really was sort of I thought that, okay, jump back to 15 years ago. Black and white prints felt superior to digital black and white. Now, the digital color prints were, I guess, caught up pretty quickly to C prints. You know, your dark room color prints, and I felt like they also had a better longevity. And so we started recognizing the asset that colored digital printing was. But I started this gallery in 2011, and I was still kind of like under the impression that the black and white prints felt better. I don't really think that now. Just kind of is still my habit or my practice. I don't get in there a ton, and I'm not that busy as a photographer. I'm editing 2 books, but so I'm down with any medium or any interpretation, as long as it's good, and that means, you know, controlled, technically handled, intentional. And where I would do that is at home, if you can. A university or community college, and taking a class is great access to kind of a large printer if you need to print large. Printing large is like a trap, though. It's like a spiritual trap, because all of a sudden you got to figure out how to present these large things, and framing costs like now 10 times more than little things. Now, if you need something excellent printed, there's one guy in town, Peter Cochran, and his name of his company is Threep, Threep. He'll work with you. He'll give you proofs. He'll charge you a fair market price, but he's good and he's local and he's trying to get his name out there. I hope he sticks around. I used to have a different name I would extend, but they moved to Norway and then came back, and they're teaching more than printing. So there's always been a good printer or 2 in town. Threep, Threep.com, and that's Peter Cochran. So if you want to find somebody to do a large print for you, he does my color printing, and which is seldom, but I'll pay $200 for a big art object if I have the opportunity to show that object. So it costs. That's why some people will make the investment into something. I have it's an old Epson now, but I have a tabletop that does super A3 size, and I'll make my own prints for just to give to people, or to put into a small show or something. Does that answer your question? One vendor that's really good, and otherwise it's like trying to figure out how to do it for yourself. Any other questions?
When you're printing your books, you have
Yes. Yes, the printing from TIFF files, like with this 57 people I'm about to work with, I anticipate some issues. Some of them will probably say, oh, I've always printed from JPEGs and it's fine. The TIFF and the CMYK, I think it's better color control on press. But then there's digital presses too that are pretty strong. There's I printed one book on a Kimura press at Worth Higgins, and that was a slightly different animal. And it was to favor artists that actually were printing kind of inkjet prints. That was their technology. So it was actually a really close approximate for them. And color was a struggle. It's always a struggle, though. And it depends on setting up the files and who does your separations. And I wish I was a genius at that. I would save myself a little bit of money, but I tend to pay for a good separator to prep my files, or your files, or his files, or whomever. And then I like to have a match print so I can fight it on press. Just add just a point of yellow, or add a little black, subtract, pull a little black, try to get contrast right. You can fight it a little bit on press if you're there, but then printing locally is that much more expensive. Like I've quoted this coming project in town, and I think I'm going to be able to print at about 60% of cost in Madrid, and even less in Lithuania. I don't know if my guy is going to go there, or whether I'm going to be the guy in Madrid, because I've never been to Spain. I don't know. But then I'm going to burn money that I'm saving. So it's like, anyway. So yeah, it's always a struggle. And a lot of people, I have not really opened a carton of books and cried. But I mean, you send your project off somewhere and you get it off of, go to Port of Maryland to get your palette, and you crack them open. I mean, there's horror stories of people who just their prints, their books, and it's their work, and just sometimes it can be pretty lousily interpreted. So we all struggle with that. And I said I had one book that doesn't have a mistake. They all have mistakes. I mean, like I could have improved the image quality of certain images in that book, I'm sure, but it's a pretty good looking book. Subjective.
We have a few messages in the chat.
Cool.
There are not questions, just messages, and let me just read them. From Sarah to everyone. I worked with Willie during the MFA workshop on a pinhole, photography digitization. Well, okay, another one is from
Willie's awesome. She's done
Mary and to everyone. Amazing background and knowledge. Looking forward to meeting you. And another note, we have some excellent members who are printers.
Ah, good.
And message from Karen Davis to everyone. I love this. I love his quote, being rejected is like art vitamins. Got around, guys. Well, she's saying that she has to go, but hope this activated your creativity. So,
Right
which
on.
is, I think, very true.
Right on.
Marianne,
Yes, sir.
you are on if you are on and loud if you want to say anything.
Oh, I'm sure if Karen hasn't said anything, this was a phenomenal presentation, and it definitely puts us in a whole different frame of thinking than what most of us are used to. And I don't know how many people can make August 5th. I happen to be away, but I definitely will make it there, and I definitely would love to be part of it because it has intrigued my interest and also my type of art and photography. So we appreciate you being here and bringing everything that you brought, and we look forward to getting to know you. And also, all of these wonderful people you know need to join the Camera Club. So let us know when you all are ready, because we would love to have you as part of our group also.
That's a little screen which I managed to pull in. Marianne, you're small, but you are very impressive.
Powerful.
And
Small but powerful.
Thank you. That's the
I
first
brought
time
you
I've ever heard
on-
that.
I brought you on the screen.
And we do have, to your point, we have, I think about 15 or 16 people from Virginia in this particular iteration of Unbound. So it's fairly national, a little bit international, and but there's some local talent for sure. And our mission is, I'm looking at you, but I don't think that's where I should be looking. Our mission is to bring notable people to town and try to elevate the discourse around contemporary photography. But Richmond's an awesome photo town.
It really
And
is.
all the galleries have their share, or their number of photographers that they'll turn to, or number of shows that they do that feature photography. There's opportunities out there. We lost a couple galleries in the pandemic, but Richmond's a great place for photography.
Marianne, I managed to enlarge you, but looks like on your right there are tons of messages which I haven't seen. Maybe you and I do not see them. I cannot read them. Maybe you can.
No, I think you've read them all. Those are the chats.
Okay.
Why are we seeing Ted? Everyone's always asking that.
Because you either have to pin Leo so that he is the main speaker,
I'm
or
ki- I'm
whoever
kidding, I'm
moves
sorry.
becomes the main speaker. All you have to do is cough and you're the speaker.
Well, I'm doing what I can right now.
Gordon, as you were saying, we have a large group of photographers, and they're phenomenal photographers in this group. So I am sure that you've met many of them. Tonight, I believe we have about 40 people who are involved. We had 17 people online, but we have over 100 photographers, and we present in many different venues. And we've been working with VMFA, and I know that we would love to be able to get into some of the galleries and meet people and talk to people and expand what we do, what we enjoy doing, what we love to do. So again, I wish I was there to meet you, but I will meet you soon, and thank you very much for being here.
Gordon, it was a pleasure.